Greg Heffley here. This isn't about cheese touch or anything gross, it's about trust. See, me and Rowley, we were like two peas in a pod. We did everything together. We hung out after school, played video games, the whole shebang. We even tried to build a treehouse once, but let's just say it ended up more like a tree lean-to. Anyway, Rowley and I, we had this unspoken rule. We had each other's backs, no matter what. It was like that unspoken agreement you have with your best friend, you know? It was unspoken because, well, we didn't need to speak about it, it just was. Then there was this other kid, Manny. He was Rowley's neighbor, and he would sometimes hang out with us. Manny was alright, I guess, but he always wanted to play pretend, which got old fast. But we put up with him because, hey, Rowley liked him. Plus, having an extra person around meant we could finally play some three-player video games. So yeah, it was the three of us, inseparable. At least that's what we thought. One day, this new kid, let's call him Tyson, arrived at our school. He was tall, with this confident swagger, and he always had this sly grin on his face. Tyson was like a magnet. People were drawn to his energy. He'd tell these amazing stories about his life, making himself sound like some kind of adventurer. Tyson started hanging around us, mostly Rowley. I guess he saw Rowley as an easy target, what with Rowley's trusting nature and all. Tyson would shower Rowley with compliments, telling him how cool he was, how funny his jokes were. It was kind of embarrassing, to be honest. Now, I'm not saying I'm some kind of expert on people, but something about Tyson rubbed me the wrong way. His stories seemed too good to be true, and that grin of his never quite reached his eyes. I tried to warn Rowley, told him to be careful, but Rowley just brushed it off. He was completely smitten with Tyson. Things started to get weird after Tyson wormed his way into our group, like, stuff would go missing. At first it was small things. A pencil here, a couple of bucks from someone's lunch money there. Nothing major, but still it was strange. And it always seemed to happen after Tyson had been around. One time, I swear I saw Tyson slipping Rowley's favorite video game, Twisted Wizard, into his backpack. When I confronted him about it, he just laughed it off, said I must have been mistaken. But I knew what I saw. I tried to tell Rowley, but by then, Tyson had filled his head with so many stories and promises that he wouldn't listen. I felt like I was stuck in some cheesy after-school special, you know, the ones where the best friend tries to warn the main character about the new bad influence, but the main character is too blinded by their new friendship to see the truth. It was frustrating, to say the least. Our group, once so tight-knit, was now a battlefield. On one side there was me, suspicious of Tyson and his motives. On the other side, there was Rowley, completely under Tyson's spell. Manny, as usual, was stuck in the middle, not sure who to believe. One day, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I went to Rowley and laid it all out for him, told him about my suspicions, about the missing stuff, about everything. I thought for sure that this time he would listen, that he would finally see Tyson for who he really was. But to my surprise, Rowley defended Tyson. He said that I was just jealous because Tyson was so cool and popular. He said that I was trying to sabotage their friendship. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My best friend, the guy who was supposed to have my back, was choosing some new kid over me. It felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Section 5, A Leap of Faith. Things came to a head when Rowley's dad's vintage comic book collection went missing. It was a big deal. Rowley's dad had been collecting those comics since he was a kid. He even had them graded and everything. When Rowley's dad discovered the comics were gone, he was devastated. Now I knew who took those comics, and I had a sinking feeling Rowley did too. But he was too afraid to admit that his precious Tyson could do such a thing. He kept making excuses for him, saying that maybe Tyson just borrowed them or that he knew where they were. That's when I made a decision. A decision I would come to regret. I told Rowley that I would help him find the comics even though I knew it was a lost cause. I thought that maybe, just maybe, if I played along I could expose Tyson for the fraud he was and win Rowley back. Section 6. The Mask Slips. I pretended to go along with Rowley's plan to find the comics, but secretly I was gathering evidence. I started paying more attention to Tyson, watching his every move. And slowly but surely, the truth began to unravel. One day, I overheard Tyson on the phone, bragging to someone about how he'd lifted a bunch of old man comics, and how he was going to sell them to some collector for a small fortune. He even mentioned the name of the comic book store where he was going to make the exchange. I couldn't believe my ears. He wasn't even trying to be discreet about it. It was like he wanted to get caught. Or maybe he just didn't care. Either way, I knew I had him. I rushed back to Rowley, my heart pounding with a mixture of anger and a strange sense of satisfaction. Section 7, Betrayal Sting. I told Rowley everything I had heard, every word. At first, he didn't believe me. He said that I was making it up, that I was just trying to make Tyson look bad, but I could see the doubt creeping into his eyes. Together, we went to the comic book store Tyson had mentioned, and there he was, sitting at a table with some shady-looking guy, counting out a wad of cash. The comic books were splayed out on the table between them. Rowley was speechless. He couldn't believe that Tyson, his friend, could betray him like this. He stormed over to the table, his face red with fury. I followed close behind, ready for whatever was about to go down. Section 8. Picking up the pieces. The confrontation in the comic book store was ugly. Rowley, usually so timid, unleashed a torrent of words on Tyson, accusing him of betrayal, of theft, of being a terrible friend. Tyson, for his part, didn't even seem fazed. He just shrugged his shoulders, said that Rowley was overreacting, and that it was just a prank. In the end, we managed to get the comics back, but the damage was done. Rowley was crushed. He had trusted Tyson completely, and Tyson had thrown that trust back in his face. It was like watching a part of Rowley die that day, the part that believed in the good in everyone. As for Tyson, he was gone before the cops even arrived. Last I heard, he'd moved to another town, probably to con some other unsuspecting kids. I guess some people never learn. Section 9. The Weight of Regret. After the whole Tyson debacle, things were weird between me and Rowley for a while. He was still hurting, and I felt guilty, like it was partly my fault for not warning him sooner, for not doing more to stop it from happening. We didn't hang out as much anymore. Rowley became withdrawn, spending most of his time alone in his room. I tried talking to him, but he just brushed me off. It was like he'd built a wall around himself, and I didn't know how to break through. One day, I decided to go over to Rowley's house and apologize. I told him that I was sorry for everything that had happened, that I should have listened to him, that I should have been a better friend. To my surprise, he started to cry. Section 10. A Lesson Learned. Rowley told me that he'd been blaming himself for what happened, for being so gullible, for letting Tyson take advantage of him. He said that he felt stupid for not seeing through Tyson's lies, for not listening to my warnings. I told him that it wasn't his fault, that Tyson was a master manipulator, and that anyone could have fallen for his act. I told him that the important thing was that he'd learned from his mistake, that he wouldn't be fooled again. We sat there for a long time just talking, like we used to. It was the first time since the whole Tyson thing that I'd seen a glimmer of the old Rowley, the one who laughed easily and didn't have a care in the world. Section 11. The Importance of Trust. The whole Tyson experience taught me a valuable lesson about trust. I learned that trust is a precious thing, not to be given lightly. It takes time to build trust, and it can be broken in an instant. I also learned that it's okay to be cautious, to question things, to not believe everything you hear. Not everyone has your best interests at heart, and sometimes the people you think you can trust the most are the ones who will hurt you the most. But most importantly, I learned that true friendship can withstand even the toughest of trials. Even though Rowley and I went through a rough patch, our bond was stronger in the end. We learned from our mistakes, forgave each other, and came out of it closer than ever. And that, my friends, is something worth cherishing.